Hey everybody, how's it going? So there's this misconception that I think exists, which is that right to repair is really an issue for people who buy Apple products. And if you don't buy Apple products, you don't have to worry about right to repair because everything else is fixable. But that's really far from being the case. Whether you're dealing with people who want to fix tractors, agriculture, people who want to fix cars before the automotive right to repair bill was passed, or even medical industry and hospitals, this is something that affects people across the entire spectrum of different types of modern devices. So I just wanted to have someone on that understands this a bit more from the medical perspective, who would be able to discuss some of what is going on here. And he was showing me some fairly expensive products that have really, seemingly inexpensive parts that were not made available. And I was just hoping that he'd be able to describe it a bit more in detail and how it affects that industry as well. So thank you very much, John, for showing, but really appreciate it. So you were talking about a motor pump.
Yeah, so basically we have a customer, it's a surgery center, and they had one of their operating room tables go down. So an operating room table, when a patient goes in for surgery, this is the table that the patient goes on, has a little hand control on it. So the surgeon, they can move it up, down, side to side, tilt, all that kind of stuff. It's really just a table with a hydraulic system on it. And there's one motor that controls, or at least for this one, it's the Skytron table. There's one motor that pushes all this hydraulic fluid, in and out all the valves and everything. Theirs went bad, so we contacted the manufacturer. They said, sorry, we don't sell this. We contacted the manufacturer of the actual motor itself, and they said, sorry, we only make this for Skytron, and there's no other way that you can buy it. So you're basically given one option to purchase a whole brand new table.
How much does that table cost?
Um, I would
Approximately.
say used is the same price as a brand new Honda Civic.
So like,
So
you're
about
saying about 22K?
$25,000. Yeah.
All right, so in the 20s. Now, and what would that table cost if it was new?
If it was new, I would probably range it about the $40,000 range.
Okay, now I know you can't tell me the precise cost of the pump approximately because again they
Uh-huh.
won't sell it to you. So what I do in my industry is if let's say Apple won't sell me a charging chip, I'll just look at the functionality. I'll ask the company, "Do you have any alternatives to this?" And they'll say, "Yeah, this chip does the same thing." And then I'll look at the price of that and try to get an idea. So for instance, many of fair market value for that chip is somewhere around like $5-10. Are you able to do that with this motor? Are you able to find something that's similar to it just so you can give people an idea approximately of what that motor costs if you were to buy it?
In that case, we would just look at, the price of another manufacturer's OR table and see the motor in that one. So Steris is another company that makes these tables. In a Steris table, this motor would be around maybe $1,800. Still overpriced, but the percentage compared to the table,
Yeah, if you're
you know,
paying like 30,000 or 40,000 for something in a hospital, people can see a motor at 1,800 as being overpriced,
yeah,
but at the same time, I have a bike motor that I kill once every 3 months that costs like $500. I wouldn't want that at an operating table. But I mean,
yeah.
as a percentage of the cost of the device, it still is considerably cheaper than buying a new table. Now, if you were to take that
Yes.
to the manufacturer, if you were to go to Skytron and say my table is not moving, like what are the options that they give you? So you have a motor that's somewhere in the few $1,000 range. You have a table that's 20 to 40K, whether you buy it used or new. What options do they give you?
So when our customer contacted Skytron, they basically said, sorry, this table, the serial number is out of service, end of life. There's nothing you can do. We won't sell you the part for it. Basically your only option is to buy a new table or, buy a used one.
So the entire table gets tossed out because the thing that allows you to recline, go up and down, doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so this isn't even a case because one of the arguments that I hear very often is, well, if you have unauthorized people do the repair, then they may do it improperly. It's not that we want people to just buy a new one. That's not the case at all. We just don't want untrained people working on our products. And what becomes really interesting is how they're not actually offering you an option for someone who is trained to work on the product, if I'm understanding you
Exactly.
correctly.
Uh-huh.
So literally
And
the only
uh-huh.
option there, just correct me if I'm wrong, the only option that you have there with that product is buy a new table. or buy a used
Yeah.
table. Like, we're not helping you with the one that you have. And when that one
Yeah,
breaks, then you
they
can buy a
won't
new
help
table
it.
after that.
You did a video talking about right to repair with medical equipment, and you showed a letter from the FDA
Yeah,
of them basically explain. Do you remember this?
I remember. Yeah, it was the one where they said that
Yeah,
they did not find that there was a higher grade of defects when you had third parties working on the equipment.
yeah, and defects were more so caused by manufacturing errors.
Yeah, I remember that. So
Yeah,
this isn't even me coming up with that. That was the FDA doing their own
yeah,
independent
exactly.
investigation and evaluation, and saw that independent repairers were able to do these jobs. So now the obvious question that's going to come up a lot is, well, what happens if you have an idiot install the motor into this? Like, what if a doctor wants to be able to move the patient from here to here or from there to there, and they're not able to because some idiot installed the motor wrong, and people die and so on and so forth.
They're not even too hard to install. It's if anything, if an idiot installed the motor, it just wouldn't work, and they would be able to tell before the guy even leaves.
You work on these products, right?
Yeah.
What are the safeguards put in place to ensure that prior to you being deemed qualified to put a motor in this product, that an idiot is not the one doing it? So, like, how does the hospital choose, or how does this sort of patient care facility wind up finding you, and how do they vet you, or how does your company vet you to ensure that you don't have, just any random dumbass doing this? Because that seems to be the primary top concern of people who are saying, I don't want right to repair anywhere near medical equipment, who don't necessarily understand what was in that FDA paper.
Typically hospitals, especially the larger campus ones, they'll have their own biomed department. So they'll have their own technicians on staff to go do it. But when it comes to like third party vendors, all these third party vendors are like private companies, like the one I work for. It's more of just um, whichever ones that they agree to do service with. So like whoever's contracted to come in. I mean, theoretically, anyone could be like, if I unscrew 4 screws on the bottom of this table, I could get into it and fix parts. Yeah. If
Do you think the fear that is unwarranted, that if something were to pass that would allow you to get access to that motor, that the table would wind up going Skynet on you, or wind up moving the patient radically in the middle of an operation or anything like that?
To be honest, I think it really just depends on which companies the hospital decides to contract for or to contract with. Because I mean, like me as a technician at a third party vendor, this hospital has a contract with our vendor. So whenever they have a problem with their device, we'll just come in and fix it. So I mean, technically they could have a contract with some shitty vendor who doesn't do their job properly, and then they'll come in, maybe they'll install the motor wrong. But at that point, it really just brings it down to competition of private businesses, which supports the idea even more of them doing a good job.
And has that competition of private businesses within the repair industry led to hospitals choosing vendors that do quality repairs, or has it led to them just choosing sorting by lowest price and having anybody show up and do a horrible job, in your experience?
In my experience, I would say it's the third party vendors that actually know what they're doing and charge less. I think when it comes to hospitals, it comes down more to like who can come out the fastest. Um, a lot of times it's going to be the third party manufacturers that can do like same day or be there right there. Sometimes they'll have contractors like on staff, but these are only like manufacturer contracts.
So the ability to get the equipment up and running again same day seems to be a priority to them. How many times over the course of a month do you run into something like this, where there's some $1,000 or $2,000 part that you can't get that keeps you from fixing a $20,000 or $30,000 device?
At least like 4 or 5 times a month. Okay, so another part that I could not buy or even see the like dimension, sizing, or material was a plastic O-ring that goes on one of these. hydraulic cylinders in these OR tables. And now this table was from Steris, and I was looking through the whole diagram. There's no mention of a part on the parts list through the service manual. They won't tell you which part it is. So I contacted Steris, the tech support, and gave them the serial number of the table. I told them I need the part number for this one O-ring, and it took him about like 30 minutes to find it, and then he came back to me, and I actually have a screenshot of what he told me. Let me pull it up. So what they told me was the serial number for this table is obsolete. The part number for that cylinder is no longer available. All tabletop cylinders are no longer applicable. If these O-rings are internal, we never had a part number for them anyway. And this was a customer that just had a leak. So they're rolling around this table all over the hospital. It's leaking oil all over the ground. And it was one tiny plastic O-ring.
How do you think this
So,
affects the cost of American healthcare?
if you've ever been on an ambulance and then seen the bill afterwards when you get charged $140 for gas for a 10-minute ambulance ride,
I
then
had a ride
you'll
from
know.
12th Street to 26th Street 2 years ago, and I was billed about
Uh-huh.
$1,100 for it. Yeah, I remember.
Oh
that.
yeah,
But
it's the premium gasoline.
no, but I mean, it's very interesting because the health cost of healthcare is a big discussion in the country, whether it should be private or social, socialized to an extent. And I think something that is being missed here is that if you tackle a lot of these issues, regardless of whether it's handled publicly or privately, just how much savings could be had. It's just kind of sickening to think of $20,000 to $40,000 devices being tossed away because of motors. And it's not even necessarily the motor is out of production. It's that the company that made the motor was told that they can't sell it to you. And
Exactly. And you have a copy of that, right?
yeah, and it's not even as if you're saying you're not even requiring the company to sell it, because this is something that people will bring up as it's unfair to ask a company to stock a part for a really long time after a device goes out, or it's unfair to have a device manufacturer then become a part seller. And to some extent, I can understand that, but a big part of it is just stop telling the people that actually are part sellers that they're not allowed to sell to us, whether it's a charging chip for a MacBook, a screen for a phone or something, or a motor to a table. Is this something that's been becoming more common in recent years, or is this just how it's always been?
This is definitely something that in the more recent years is becoming more of a problem. So I'll look at a lot of service manuals, and typically for the older devices, a lot of this stuff in hospitals is a lot of this equipment is made in like the 80s, 90s, like early 2000s, and still used today. They've literally been servicing it from its life, and it's still working now. And one of those ones is there's a company called Baxter. They make infusion pumps. Um, but yeah, they're still in use. I see those things all the time, still in use today, and they're from I think the 90s. I've
See,
seen on yeah, I've seen on equipment on the bottom. There was a little sticker said like last serviced in 72. I was like, what?
so you have equipment that's 50 to 60 years old that is more usable or more repairable and serviceable than equipment that was produced just a few years ago.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking in the service manuals for these things, there will be entire schematics on them in the back. Like
So this is not something that's always been. This is something that's been changing culturally as the time has gone on. The ability, and this is something that I've been discussing for a while, which is it's not one company, it's not one industry. It's kind of been this cultural shift to this, as Scott Galloway calls it, like the recurring revenue bundle or the rundle, which is how can we make money every single month or every single year off of a customer for the providing them the same thing. And it's like it's insane. I had no idea until just very recently that someone in endoscope repair or operating table repair would have the exact same complaint that I did. Like it's just you just cross out charging chip laptop and you put in operating table pump, and the exact same description applies. which is crazy.
There's a company called Stryker. Have you heard of them?
No.
Yeah, it's just another of these uh biomedical manufacturers. But they have a thing. It's a camera switch. So if you have a bunch of screens but only one computer, you'd use a camera switch to switch between all the screens and like
Yeah.
which input and all that. So Stryker in an OR room, this we have a customer. This is in their heart room, so doing heart surgeries. Every time this room is down, they're losing every day this room is down, they're losing probably $100,000. They have a so there's at least like 5 different monitors set up, so all the surgeons, they can put, oh, I want this endoscope cam on this screen, I want the heart rate and like vitals on this screen. So they have a little touch panel to control all that. It's like a fancy, super expensive camera switch. So this camera switch, it went down. They contacted Stryker. Stryker told them, sorry, this is too old. We cannot service it. The only option, and this thing has cables mounted through the ceiling, like it's a real like install that you have to do. But basically Stryker said, no, your only option, since this product is too old, is to buy a new one. So you'd have to pay us to come in, uninstall, take all these cables out the ceiling, out the walls, all that, buy a new one, and then reinstall it. And I don't even know how long that would take them to do. But as I mentioned, it's about $100,000 a day just from not having this room, open. We They contacted us. We came in there the same day, figured out that it was a bad video card. And it's really just like a basic computers. It even runs Windows, like Windows embedded on it. It was a bad video card. We took it out, and we had actually purchased another one of these units to use as a donor. We just took the old video card out, put a couple screws in, put the new video card in, and it worked. Just like that.
So it was pretty much a PC that had a video card in it, and you would have had to replace an entire installed system that has wires going to the
Yeah.
ceiling and everything over a video card.
Yep. For one
Well,
video
at least
card.
you're able to get the video card. There's a plus to
I
that
know.
story. Was it a proprietary video card, or was it?
Oh, no. These are all
Just like-
super proprietary. We were not able to buy any parts. We had to buy a whole unit.
So this is not like an ATX PC.
I mean, it is. It really is. There's a little drawer that comes out, and all these cards you can just pull out, but you can't buy the cards. You can't buy any parts for this. This is like strictly, you need to work. Well, actually, I don't even think, yeah, Stryker, they said they won't even service it. But let's say back when they did service it, you still couldn't, buy parts for this.
Do you know of any of the lobbyist arguments against right to repair when it comes to the medical industry that makes sense? Is there anything that they're saying where you could go, okay, I understand that, or I agree with that?
A lot of times I'll hear them say like, oh, it's about the safety, and we want to help people be safe because we don't want some untrained dumbass to come in here and break your equipment. The only times I would agree with that is when it comes to these super expensive, here I'll give an example. So a lot of things that we don't service is the things that you would require a specialty. So like imaging, like X-rays, MRIs. One of them, there's a $2 million surgery robot called the Da Vinci. But for a hospital to even buy one of those, they have to buy a like $1 million liability contract, and they have to also pay um, someone from the manufacturer. They have to pay like a manufacturer technician to be on site at all times, to just even have that. I think when it comes to things like that, I would agree with the safety, but most of the devices, like infusion pumps, even defibrillators, um, stuff like that, you should not need a super specialized OEM technician to come out and service that.
Yeah, I agree. So it kind of sounds like, if you're talking about the item that is sold as this is a surgical robot that will do surgery for you, that's one thing. But if you're talking about a pump, a motor, like a mechanical,
An
basic mechanical
O-ring.
part, yeah, like that the safety argument is just get out of here.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that about concludes the questions that I had. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too.